How about we start with a disclaimer that I am not going to be mean about the game from your childhood, so there is no need to be upset, as sometimes tends to happen with these videos. This is more of a case of, this thing existed, okay, and now we can move on. LucasArts, to many people, myself included, are regarded as having a much better than average output of titles in terms of quality. Although they didn't start out immediately with their extremely well-known Star Wars games and their even more well-received classic point and clickers, it would be fair to say that that is where their legacy lies. But even with the backing of a media empire, no one is safe from having a few swing and misses. And one of those is what this video will be about. Here, we're talking about Herc's Adventures, a title you may or may not remember from 1997. Although published by LucasArts, it was developed by a company called Big Ape Productions. A company with 5 titles to their name and no Wikipedia page. I can tell you that the other 4 titles that they made were The Phantom Menace, Simpsons Wrestling, Gauntlet, Dark Legacy and Celebrity Deathmatch. A small output over a few years, but what could be said is that they were trusted with some high-profile IPs. Herc's Adventures seems to be the only one that they were not following an overlord's strict instructions, and I suppose they made a good enough game that at least one person remembers it close to 22 years later. If I was to do the cliff notes, I would say it's a 2-player co-op action-adventure game where you play as one of 3 ancient Greek heroes. We got Hercules the Strong Guy, Atalanta the Huntress, or Jason of the Golden Fleece fame. They are out on a quest to defeat all-round bad guy Hades and save the goddess of nature, Persephone. This is all set in a semi-open world map which covers many of the places and the faces of the time, mixed with a few jokes, full motion video and some average to bad combat. There we have it. It came out on the PlayStation and the Saturn, although the Saturn version didn't make its way outside of the USA. This is strange as it was meant to be a Saturn exclusive to start with. It may also explain if this is a more recognised title outside of Europe and Asia, as almost without exception, everyone I have asked about this game didn't really remember it. I had kinda fond, but admittedly kinda incomplete memories of this game, so a bit of my own boring history. At the time, my brother had got me a PlayStation from Asia with a ton of ripped games. This was one of them. I can't even remember how far I got into it or even if I completed it. I remember the cartoon cutscenes and I remember some pretty cheesy jokes, and overall I thought that it was okay. I can't be the only one with these hazy memories because although I can't find the clipping right now, I specifically remember that a PlayStation magazine that I had, it had a short 100-word review of this game in it, complete with screen captures from Disney's Hercules game. So anyway, I checked it out again recently, and although a bit fuzzy, I can confirm that this is in fact the same game that I had on a copied CDR from 1998, and it is still the very definition of okay. The review I would give would not be shitting on it, but simply to say it tried something different, well done for existing, the team behind it were definitely talented, but they can't all be winners. Saying that, I never think that there is any benefit to be mean about games, especially as there are people who probably really do like this. I'd guess that the majority of people who find this video did so as they were very fond of it. So it's always good to highlight the positives, and I'm happy to say there are at least a few. The style of the game was certainly different, different enough for me to remember it as a point of interest to look it up and play it again after all these years. What you have is a bright overworld mixed with an animated overlaid cutscenes when one of the gods wants to talk to you. With the exception of the switch to and from the underworld section, the game world is presented as an open, singular map without any loading screens or cuts between areas. Also, using iMuse, the MIDI music syncs between areas and everything keeps sort of chugging along. The musical score is by Michael Land, who not only jointly created iMuse, but also scored the Monkey Island games. He did a few of the Star Wars games and also one of this channel's favourites, The Dig. So undoubtedly it was safe hands to leave the composition with him. The game purposely tries to be a bit silly, with everything and everyone being an exaggerated caricature. It all looks a bit dated when checking it out retrospectively with our current high def standards, but this was pumping out on the little old PS1, so any graphical complaints would just be ridiculous. I'll take cartoons of this over sharp polygons of others any day. Also, the humour comes across in exactly the same way. It's a product of a different time, so therefore the jokes are as well. And if you remember, mid-90s humour was plenty of the random lol stuff, as well as people running around in their underpants. That's all in here. For all of its style and setting, it is a very run-of-the-mill overhead action-adventure game. I still think it's fun, but it doesn't excel in any department, and I felt in some areas it was actually a step back. There were a few notable differences than what you would see as standard in the genre, the most interesting being the hidden lives system. So if you die in the overworld, being ancient Greece, you're sent to Hades domain, the underworld. So you have to fight your way to the entrance and escape back into the light, puts you back in the overworld, fine. But if you fail to escape, it's game over. Each time this happens, so you go to the underworld, it gets increasingly hard to fight your way back through the spooky skeletons, but on your 5th death, it's game over no matter what. I didn't know this to start. As you have to use the limited currency you find in game to create saves, there's a potential here that you have to sort of chuck it all in and just start a new game. Healing items, they can be found rarely and they can be bought even more infrequently, so this do-over you have to do, it's a very real possibility every time. In fact, I remembered the start of the game quite vividly, as I suppose that this is what I did over and over and over 20 years ago. So all in all, I'm going to be very brave and give this the rating of okay. You know, it's okay out of 10. It's got as many hits as misses. None of it's a total waste of your time. It's a mid-table season end. It's a ham and cheese sandwich and a packet of ready salted for your lunch. At the time, the reviewers were also equally as tepid, as it got extremely normal scores. If you do fancy having a go at this, you could of course buy an old copy. You could emulate it. Legally, of course. And it seems that it was released on PSN in 2014 for $6, but I don't know if anyone bought it. I reckon not. Anyway, classic gaming stuff, sometimes modern gaming stuff, whatever. Subscribe, like. See you later.